The Development Bank of Jamaica, Jamaica Venture Capital Program, and Caribbean Alternative Investment Association present a weekly webinar series, Building the Economy through Alternative Investments. The Development Bank of Jamaica, Jamaica Venture Capital Program, and Caribbean Alternative Investment Association present a weekly webinar series, Building the Economy through Alternative Investments.
A special good morning to you from the offices of the Development Bank of Jamaica here in Kingston. I'm Audrey Richards and I'm the project coordinator for the Jamaica Venture Capital Program. It's my pleasure to welcome you, our online audiences, on our various social media platforms. This is the fifth of our 7 webinar series, and it's been brought to you by the Jamaica Venture Capital Program in association with the Caribbean Alternative Investment Association. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the Inter-American Development Bank for the support which they've given to the Venture Capital Program over the years, as well as the support given to the newly formed Caribbean Alternative Investment. A very good morning to you from the offices of the Development Bank of Jamaica here in Kingston. I'm Audrey Richards and I'm project coordinator of the Jamaica Venture Capital Program. A very warm welcome to our audience and audiences on our social media platforms. It's my pleasure to really welcome you here this morning and to thank you for joining us. Now, this is the 6th in our 7 webinar series, and it's been brought to you by the Development Bank in association with the Caribbean Alternative Investment Association. I'd like at this time to acknowledge the Inter-American Development Bank, which has supported our programs over many years. Now, we thought that it was important to bring this alternative investment series to you and to share with our many audiences what alternative investments are all about. We realize that with COVID, we're faced with pretty much business unusual, and life is never going to be the same. What we know is that our COVID has impacted our lives, our livelihoods. Business is never going to be the same. Personal lives are never going to be the same. Now, what we find is that what we want to be able to look at today is what has been happening with technology. What we realize is that technology, it has come to the fore of everything. Technology is now underpinning all that we do everywhere. And we realize, and what is evident is that once we have survived COVID, technology is going to be at the bottom of everything that we do. It's going to underpin everything that we do. So where we are going now is looking at our entrepreneurs. What are our tech entrepreneurs saying? What have they been able to do during COVID? Where do they see technology taking us? Can we leapfrog where we were? And what does it mean for Jamaica? What does it mean for the world? And what is the role that we need to play? So this morning, we have with us a lot of our tech entrepreneurs or experts in the field. Some are here, most are here locally in Jamaica, but we also have one that is in San Francisco. Our moderator, by the way, their bios are all on our website, so please take the time to look at them. Our moderator this morning is Stacey Hines. Stacey is the CIO of the ICD group rather, and Stacey is also, importantly, president of JCS, which is Jamaica's Technical and Digital Alliance. So without further ado, let me pass over to Stacey. Thank you.
And we are live. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Stacey Hines, and I am president of the JCS, Jamaica's Technology and Digital Alliance, and I am going to be your facilitator, moderator, host for this epic conversation that is all about and around Jamaican innovators and the tech entrepreneurs on the scene, and how we collectively and individually, are shining a light on the future. So welcome. This is another in the series of the DBJ webinars, that is the Development Bank of Jamaica, through its JV Capital program in collaboration with the Caribbean Alternative Investment Association, has put on this amazing series. And this is episode 6 in that series. And we are going to be joined today by some epic persons. You'll hear me use epic a few times because I just think anything in the space of innovation and technology and just transformation in general is of the epic level. So welcome, guys. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for this conversation. Along with me are 4 wonderful entrepreneurs who are on the tech scene. You'll probably even be surprised at the backgrounds that you'll hear that each person has. And I believe there are detailed bios that you'll be able to find through the Facebook page of the DBJ. But for our purposes today, I will just introduce them by name and the companies that they are founders of. Okay, I just love that I'm in the company of founders, right? So first we want to introduce and welcome Kenya Mattis. She is the founder of Listen Me. I love saying the name of that. Welcome, Kenya. Then next we want to introduce Dwight Scott, who is co-founder of BlackRock Technologies. Then we have Dwayne Samuels, who is the founder of Same Logic, based in San Francisco, hailing from Jamaica. Welcome, Dwayne. And bringing us up with greatness, we have Yakini Wallen-Bryan, who is the founder of Prelabs. So welcome, Yakini. And I'm just excited because I know all of these guys personally. And as a matter of fact, I've actually probably received pitches from each of you, which is even more interesting and exciting and gives me just a great sense of pride to have been a part of your entrepreneurial journey in some way, especially when we're talking about, the funding resources that enables you to be able to take this dream of innovating and being trailblazing in the space of technology for your sector. So welcome everybody, and I hope you're ready for this conversation. Okay, so let's jump right in. Now, when we first started thinking through the conversation that we wanted today, we really wanted to focus a lot on the exceptional work that is being done by our entrepreneurs, both locally and overseas, exploring the challenges and the successes and talking about funding sources. However, as is very popular in technology, we're about to pivot this conversation just a little bit because we really want to extend the discussion to you, our community, to you, the audience, the persons who are watching this. Because innovation and technology towards a brighter future for our country is not just about our tech entrepreneurs. It's not just about the persons who are in the space of working with digitization and with technology. It is also about how you play your part. And so in leaving today's webinar, I really want to make sure that all of us are able to see how we play a role in this. So let's start off with a conversation around what tech things, what innovations do we feel will drive and grow the economy? And I'm going to go ahead and start off with you, Kenya, as somebody that is not just spanning tech, but is also spanning the arts. I think this should be an interesting place for us to begin.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Stacey, and to be a part of this panel is really amazing because I think it's a very important conversation to have. I feel that the future of innovation for Jamaica is a very unique case study, particularly because we, as a small country, have already demonstrated our global dominance in the area of creativity. Our vibe, our culture has been our advantage for so many years. And I feel like now in this time, we have a unique opportunity to combine our experience and our love for culture and the world love for our culture with a tech-driven approach where we can really use that intersection to come up with new tools to empower creatives to make money directly from their culture, from their art, and distribute our cultural products to a wider audience. So I think using technology, we can really create a powerful platform for us to innovate around solving real problems for how we can create better products and make money from our IP, which is super important. And I feel like although technology is a huge part of that answer, collaboration in terms of how we do that is going to be super important as well. So technology that can help us as people to work together, complement our strengths, and connect with markets directly is really going to take our history and our culture to a new level in terms of empowerment for our economy as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. All right, so I would love to hear from Dwayne as well on this. If you could just give us your insight on what tech things or what innovation will drive and grow our economy.
Again, thank you for having me. I do think even though, while the technology is important, the frameworks as well are just as important, right? Anyone can actually learn how to build things by like a simple Google search, but understanding how to build something that lasts and like build something that actually solves a need is as just as important as understanding how to build those things, right? So I believe the mentorship and the education should also be centered on frameworks, should be centered on methodology, should be centered on taxonomies, that we can basically use to implement, to understand how to build things and how to experiment very quickly, and how to understand how to build things that actually solves real needs that people actually have, right? Because like when you look at big companies, the way how they actually accelerate different features and like validate different things, they use different taxonomies. And for us here at Same Logic, we're kind of like experimenting with taxonomies as well. Right now, we're experimenting with Bloom's taxonomy, which actually helps to understand, like help people to understand how to basically make your product a bit like fall into their whole process in their companies. And also, using Bloom's taxonomy, you can actually teach people how to use a product and also like make the product very, very sticky, right? It has like 7 different steps, and pretty much for all of those steps, you have like very, very methodological processes to follow, right? So like people have been like forming companies like for years and years, probably hundreds of years. For every segment or every vertical or every industry, they have these taxonomies. So understanding where these taxonomies work, and understanding how to use them is just as important as technology. So there's no real reason of like remaking the wheel or reinventing the wheel, right? So learning these processes are very important.
Okay, that's actually very insightful. And a key point that you made starting out is that it doesn't have to just be about the technology, right? And I think that's what happens a lot of times, just in how we relate to the public, and that divide between, the intersection between the tech providers and the public that is utilizing or benefiting from same. We need to really recognize that there is no gap anymore, right? And so moving us ahead as growing the economy through innovation is not just the tech responsibility, it's everybody's. I would love to also hear from Yakini. What are your thoughts on this? What role, should technology and innovation be playing in driving and growing the economy?
Well, the role, as bluntly as I can put it, or as frankly as I can put it, is that it has to play a central role. The direction that the world is going and the direction that Jamaica has to go to keep up with the rest of the world has to be one in which we use technology to empower the regular activities that we need to function our society, or that our society is built upon. How we connect supplier to consumer, how we relate with our government, how we relate with our banks, how we manage our resources, our utilities, how in touch we are with our environment. But more importantly, as previously said, a key deciding factor on how that's going to work and how well that works is how we're able to train people to actually work with the technology. I tell people all the time, if writing code or designing circuit boards where all we had to do, we'd have the, you know, easiest job in the world, but that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is really figuring out how to build technology that relates to people in a way that empowers them. You know, not necessarily writing the most complicated code, but building a solution that empowers people in doing the things that they want to do on a regular basis to have a sustainable lifestyle. So whatever role technology plays, there are so many different sectors and industries that we can talk about, but it has to play a central role in whatever direction we're going to take and in any sector of our economy in order for us to get to where we need to go.
Great point. I'm hearing a theme. I'm hearing a nice theme coming up here, and I'm just hoping, Dwight, can you add to that? I would love to hear from you.
Okay. I mean, it's a big question. So if you narrow the question a little bit to just Jamaica, right? How can technology help Jamaica, and how should technology enable Jamaica? I think if we remove the technology from it first and just look at leadership first, right? Before technology, we need to solve the leadership challenge. We need leaders both in the private space, or the private sector space, and then in the public sector space to really apply a sense of urgency around, you know, the embracing or the embracement of technology. So I don't think that we have a problem understanding that this is a direction we need to go to, because we don't have a choice. It's not like Jamaica has a choice, or any nation or any individual has a choice. This is it. We are there. We are there already. It's just at the scale and speed at which we're innovating. So I think that if we have leaders who are committed to allowing technology to do what it needs to get done or to achieve, then we will see a different Jamaica. So I can't talk to you about innovation because that would be a waste of a good conversation, to be honest with you. Because we do have innovation. What we need is, we need the leaders, both in the private sector and the public sector, to start to think that this is something that we need to embrace and collaborate, you know? So if you look at areas that we can touch now as sectors, so we talk about the creative economy, right? If you look, Jamaica has some of the most brilliant and creative people. So if you look at digital marketing, whether it's building the next Fiverr, Jamaica can do that. If you look at tourism and just amplifying tourism, which is a mainstay for our economy, but adding more technology to that. If you look at the friction in finance, I mean, guys, I'm Dwight Scott, and just a brief correction again, I'm from Orba. So BlackRock Stacey is a former company that we renamed to Orba, right? So it's Orba Technology Holdings, and I'm a co-founder with my partners. So we've built a number of platforms. So we primarily focus on the fintech space, right? And I can tell you, because we want this to be a very engaging conversation, when we meet with these leaders in the different, particularly in the banking space, I have to give credit to a lot of them because at least they're listening. But the problem or the challenge that I find is that the people that we're talking to, they're the wrong people. I mean, and I'm not attacking anyone, but they're the wrong people, because we need to talk to people who understand that this is important, right? So I think where Jamaica is at now is a very interesting point, where you have the guys who are pushing the technologies, but the guys who are supposed to allow the technology to enhance what they're doing is very slow. Now, I'm not telling you it's not moving and it's not turning. So I think what we have to have is that we have to talk to them and they have to talk to us, or we can better work together. Because, you know, we can't continue to work as contrarians. But I think that there's huge possibility for Jamaica to innovate. So I would say, first we need to fix the leadership, and the leadership needs to understand that technology needs to be more more embedded. It's too complementary. So if you look at a lot of the firms, technology is still a complementary function. It's not a core function. So if you look at our banks, I was passing Scotia this morning on Alfred Tree Road, and people are just outside waiting. Same thing with all the banks to go to ATM. There's too much friction across payments, right? So the government and the leaders in the private sector, we just have to stop talking and get serious about it. There's too much talking. So I would say the technology is available, but the leaders are not allowing the technology to play its role. That's what I'll say as a start. Then we can go to innovation, because if we don't get the access, that we can't innovate. And the next thing I will say to you, but I will allow you later where we can talk about what we can do in those spaces.
Here, here.
Riveting points there, Dwight. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I actually think that you hit the nail on the head when we talk about, before we even talk about the innovation and the technology, because it's there. And just you guys are proof that it's already there. There's a lot of creativity in the space. There's a lot of innovating in the space. Lots of amazing companies like Orba, like ListenMate, that in the space already. Founders, persons with great ideas. And so just to essentially underscore what you're saying, it's that we believe that we have, if not all, but certainly the great starts to the type of innovation and technology that we need to drive and grow the economy. But what will actually help to create more entrepreneurs who are experiencing that success, and to bridge the gap between the persons that are providing the technology and the persons who are utilizing it for empowering their daily living, as Yakini said, will be access, inclusion. And in order for us to have that access and to gain that inclusion, to create that inclusion, we need leadership at a different level of enrollment and at a different level of empowerment, is what I gathered from that discussion just now. And so, you mentioned one particular industry, which is the banking industry, in terms of the financial inclusion component, as well as possibly persons who are providing funding to entities like yours. What other spaces would we consider in terms of the infrastructure space? What other players do we feel would really be a great support for moving our technology and innovation efforts forward, accelerating our impact on Jamaica? And I'll start with Yakini on that one.
Well, where to begin? On top of my mind, I can speak
on areas that Prelabs has been directly involved in. One major sector is utilities. We have one of the highest cost of energies in the region, in the world, by correction there. As a result, it's very difficult to do things like manufacturing. It puts a strain on the grid. We also have issues with water. We've been having a drought almost every year for a number of years now, and all of us in some way, shape, or form has experienced water shortages. So what we've been doing at Prelabs is building a platform that essentially allows people to mitigate on their consumption, to be able to manage their resources more effectively with power pre and water pre, to understand exactly where your energy consumption is going, where it's going, how your water consumption is doing, know what's happening in your tank, and being able to conserve. So utilities is one way, being able to allowing people to be able to manage the resources more effectively, to then therefore live more sustainable lifestyles as we approach a society that is supposed to be more climate resilient, given that Jamaica is amongst those developing nations that are going to be feeling the brunt of climate change head on. Technology has to play an integral role in allowing us to manage our resources more effectively. And on top of that as well, we've been working with environmental agencies to empower their data collection methodologies using that same Internet of Things platform that we've built, allowing them to collect environmental data on things like rainwater, soil moisture, temperature, humidity, and forest fires, enabling them to more respond accurately and swiftly to the forest fires that have been plaguing the Blue and Jonker Mountains, and reducing our water supply as well as a result. So those are two ways, or one major way in which technology can play a difference, but it doesn't stop there. I know that a lot of people are doing work in terms of connecting supplier and consumer. You have platforms like QMall coming out, which essentially allows businesses that are just starting up to have an entire logistics platform, which is supposed to be similar to an Amazon for the Caribbean. I know a lot of people are doing a lot of major work. Education is the next thing I know. EduFocal is doing some good work there in enabling people to be able to manage their resources more, educate students more effectively. So I mean, the list goes on and on, but that's some of the key critical factors. And again, a big part in all of this being able to happen is ensuring that people are digitally registered so that they can have access to more financial services and technologies that would allow them to carry out their transactions and their day-to-day activities more effectively and efficiently. So that's just a few places I would start by mentioning.
Okay, that's actually really good. And I think, you know, a lot of shifts have happened in the space of our utilities. When we all experienced COVID and had to go through being home at different points, experiencing lockdown, you know, access to things that we maybe have taken for granted in the past. And I feel that one of the main things that happened through COVID was just the recognition that this is an area of opportunity on all levels, so in all sectors, right? And I wanted to touch on something that you talked about. You talked about upskilling and how important the education sector, you know, both with becoming digitized and also with helping persons with, you know, their own knowledge, etc. Kenya, would you be able to share with us the role that you think education plays?
I think education plays a pivotal role, and you mentioned COVID and just that experience of being in quarantine. And I think the collective consciousness of people sitting and thinking, okay, maybe there are other ways that we can actually educate our children. Maybe there are things that I've wanted to learn and I haven't been able to sort of put that energy into it. And I've definitely witnessed over the COVID period and since then till now that there has been an explosion of interest. And again, I'm wearing a creative lens here. As an explosion of interest in families and parents wanting their children to learn skills that are more complementary to what we call like 21st century skills. Creativity, how to animate, how to collaborate, how to put your own ideas into fruition. And we've been able to see that and actually encourage parents and children to do things that they probably wouldn't have done in a traditional educational system. So using the space to learn how to, you know, create innovative solutions at home, to write their own books, to publish their own animations, to actually just create things that could have global distribution through technological platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's through apps, or whether it's through games. I think there's just an explosion of interest in that very same thing that I've been seeing, which is just our innate creativity and how we can, and thank you very much for, if you can, Stacey, you remember the example of the versus battle, which we had the other day, right, with Beanie and Bounty. Nobody can deny the importance of technology when it came to having a top class experience on a global level, putting our creativity on display. So we see that telecoms are so important in that conversation. And I think that seeing how that really lifted, you know, the profile and the spirit of the people are saying, okay, well, how can we harness this energy, take advantage of it, and how can we start from the educational level? How can we start from the primary and secondary level? And through online learning platforms, which have been discounted during this period, and through new solutions, some of them that we've been putting out there are like for greaterkicks.com for kids who want to write and animate their own stories, or from maketheplanet.com for kids who want to use Tony handmade fashion activities to create stuff at home. A lot more parents are gearing up for alternative avenues towards education at this time, which I think is really exciting.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Dwight if he can weigh in on another sector that I feel is ripe for opportunity and is an area where, and I think one of the things that both Kenya and Kenya have pointed out are that, you know, we have the opportunity to take advantage of these different, I would call them technology levers that have become more of a priority since COVID. So specifically, Dwight, what role do you believe satellite can play just in the way that we are able to gain access? Because we were talking about, you know, that access and that inclusion. And I think in, you know, in prior discussions we had had a little bit of a conversation around satellite technology and how that has shifted. Would you be able to share some of that with us today?
Okay, so before I address that, let's talk a little bit on the inclusion side, right, which Yakini had spoken about. So on the inclusion side, I know a big push of this institution, the DBJ, and the government, of course, is the whole idea of inclusion, right? So I think what I can competently speak about is that area in terms of a precursor to financial inclusion is identity inclusion, right? So what we at Orba, what we have done is we created the region's first AML KYC onboarding platform, which allows you, through a SDK, allows you to onboard digitally from anywhere in real time, remotely, from your phone, using a government ID, and that allows you to become AML and KYC compliant at bank grade levels. So that allows you where you can do transaction, do business with any institution in Jamaica and around the world. And so that's the area that I think satellite, as it relates to traditional, those are big industries. And I'll be the first to tell you that those are opportunities. But again, I'm a little bit on the pragmatic side, and I think that's the whole purpose of this. That's not where Jamaica is going to have its near-term and medium-term win, because you have microcubes. I mean, Dwayne can speak a lot more about these things. I think we have opportunities in those areas, but I think where we have the hanging fruits is in the financial sector, because if you look in the region, Jamaica has always led. You know, we have always been the leader in these areas. So I think that the region is looking to Jamaica for leadership, especially in the financial space. And so what I can say to you that if we can get, you know, the friction out of transaction, and we can get Jamaicans all across this country to engage, as you spoke about earlier about, you have QMall, you have all these different platforms, but guess what happened? The challenge now is the gateway, the end-to-end. And so going back to what we talk about, the inclusion piece, if we can begin to have a much more inclusive conversation with the financial community, particularly the Bankers Association, right? And they can understand that their role is not to do the innovation, because this is a challenge, because we're here to talk about what's wrong with the system and how we can get it going. The bankers need to back off and work with us, the innovators. They're not the innovators. They're the regulators, right? Allow us to do the innovation with them, not as contrarians, but as collaborators. Because if you look at what happened recently, where you want to get the unbanked bank, but if you look at what has happened in China and the nations that are innovating, they're not trying to get people banked. Because if you look at if the banks really speak out, the cost of AML activities and per account, that's very expensive. The average man in Jamaica is not saving any money. So he doesn't need to have a bank account. What he needs is transaction. So what we need to do, we need to move from bank to transaction. Get people transacting in the economy. Because most people are not saving. We don't have that sort of economy. But what we have people doing is doing transaction every single minute of every single hour in this country, right? So what we need to become is a transactional economy, like what China has done to WePay, Alipay, all these different platforms. You don't hear people paying, right? But people transacting. And so what needs to happen now is that, what is the biggest problem to transaction? We just got blacklisted. We were gray listed, right? So what it needs to get done? People needs to be verified. We need to know who we're dealing with in the wild. How do we do that? We need to check the KYC, check the AML stuff, right? How do we do that at scale? Because this is what you call a contactless economy. So what we need to have now is that we need to have a platform, and guys, allow me to do this, like Orba One, right? To verify these people for the institutions and to say, hey, Stacy's bank grade AML, bank grade KYC, and compliant and can do business with, right? Then you will look at the credit bureau, because now we start to integrate. They will start to verify the TRN, etc. Then they can go to the bank, and the bank can say, okay, based on your transaction, what sort of products and services can we create for this particular demographic. So I think that's where we need to have the biggest conversation. And then we have other innovators in the banking space, because all the countries that are winning, Stacey, how are they winning? Open banking. Think about it. I cannot right now just get a bank statement. I have to go to the bank, go online. The banks are not talking to each other, right? So we can, in the States, it's a law. The central bank says, hey, you have to allow the public or institutions to integrate with you. And who provides that? The central bank provides the API for the integration. So the banks have too much control in this country. So the banks needs to become more inclusive with innovators and let us work together. And that's the challenge I will continue to push. And we will see so much more happening, because guess what? At that time, the bank/financial community will begin to focus on what they're good at, which is financial products and services. And they will focus on, for example, areas like agriculture. What if we get more, because if you look at St. Mary, St. Thomas, all these places, you can't rely on traditional farming. So we need to go into vertical farming, warehouse farming. But you need specific financing for these sectors. Look at what we have done with marijuana. We can do that for all the other crops. Look at what we have done in less than 3 years with marijuana. There's been so much investment in marijuana, but we have had pepper, ginger, tomato. We have all these other cash crops, but no innovation. So this is the problem. Now we get a wave, everybody runs with it, but we forget all the other crops that feeds us every single day. Because marijuana is not feeding us, but we decide, oh, we can have big investment in this. So I don't want to be too controversial, but we need to be pragmatic. We need to have people doing transaction, we need to have people verified, and we need to have people AML compliant, so that the rest of the financial world can respect Jamaica as a compliant jurisdiction and say, you know what, we need to do more business with this country. That's really what I'm good at. I can speak around Orba One, KYC, AML platform, not so much as satellite stuff. That's what I'm good at. Yannick, Dwayne, if you guys want to touch on that, I'll say, hey, go ahead, have a field day.
Thanks for that, Dwight. I actually do really, I guess I would say, champion and agree with you around your concern for financial inclusion. I'm in the midst of doing a digital boot camp myself. And the number one challenge that all of the participants in the digital boot camp have said that they have is with payment gateways. So the challenge is real. And I feel that there is activity, there is agitation, there is movement. Now, the speed at which that is happening, maybe that's where we can definitely see some improvement. And in particular, when it comes to that identity inclusion, and yes, I am AML and KYC compliant banks, pleased to know he is correct in saying that, right? I'm sure we all are, and we all want it to be very easy for persons to do business with us. So I absolutely understand where the passion is coming from, Dwight. And I don't think it's controversial. I just think it's top of mind for everybody that's in the space right now. I will be tossing it over to Dwayne, though, because he has been able to gain a great insight on what it is like in the Bay Area. You know, you're based in San Francisco, I believe. And so, you know, from your lenses now, having, you know, been in Jamaica and you're now there, you know, what are you seeing that we are, aside from the financial inclusion perspective and becoming a more transactionally enabled society, what are you seeing where you are that would really help to propel us forward?
I would say the first thing is that people in the Bay Area, they don't ask for permission, right? They're not afraid to break rules, right? Like breaking laws and breaking rules are two different things, right? As a founder, as an entrepreneur, your sole purpose is to not agree with everything everyone says, right? You have a hypothesis, which at times is like the whole world's against you, saying it's wrong, right? And your job as a founder is to make sure you try to kill that idea as fast as you can. Try everything you can to like not like let the idea grow, but at still at the same time you get feedback from people and use that to build your hypothesis and prove certain things to make sure it's right. So a lot of experimentation happens, right? And like, yeah, it's the stark difference, I would say, when it comes on to the way how people think, is that one, you don't ask for permission. You just go ahead and do it as long as it's legal, right? Is within certain constraints. So I think as a country as well, as Jamaicans, that's one thing we should pretty much like think about. Not because you meet with someone and they say it's not possible, that doesn't mean you should like go back to the drawing board. Speak with someone else. Try to find some other way to validate what your hypothesis says, right? And when you've exhausted every single thing and like everything says no, that's when you should actually stop. But when you see like things actually going in the positive way after like getting tons and tons of feedback, after running tons and tons of experiments, that usually gives you the information on whether to be or not you're supposed to go in that direction. And a lot of times that's my problem. I kind of think I've also like had this problem a lot. And the thing is, like, when you have an idea, it's your baby, right? Like, you want to try everything you can to make that baby live. You want to make sure you're doing everything that you can to just make it just blossom and prosper. But what you're really supposed to be doing is just trying to find every single thing wrong about what you're doing, right? Try to kill that idea. And if it's alive after you try and killing it, that means like it deserves to grow. So in that regard, like I would say that's where we kind of need to be adaptive and like just change our whole like perception of the way how we're doing things. When it comes on to industries where I think like a lot of innovation needs to happen, I would say like two. One is the medical area. You have like tons and tons of algorithms out there that actually help people to understand patterns, understand what happens within your bodies, right? For example, since the like mid 70s, you have this algorithm called a tree structured renter quantization algorithm, which actually like just looks at like different things that actually happens through patterns. And like in the army, they've used that to like predict where droughts will be happening, predict where like they should basically put their militia, you know. And in the mid 90s, some doctors actually apply the same algorithm to lung cancer and found out that pretty much it is much more effective at finding lung cancer, right? So looking at the different things that people actually have done in different areas and finding where they actually dovetail with things in the medical industry and also other industries as well can actually help us to understand what industries can actually benefit from these things and what industries can actually be automated. Because like really and truly what a doctor does is basically just meet someone, like run a few tests and tell them a result. And like sometimes 5 out of 10 times they're wrong, right? And that's a huge problem. That's why you see like a lot of people getting misdiagnosis, a lot of people just like taking the wrong medication and like getting more and more problems that they actually had done before because of the doctors. And the doctors have so many people coming into them like on a daily basis and they're tired. They're just people. Algorithms don't get tired, right? So pretty much just understanding how we can actually like change the way how that's done. And then for me, like I worry whenever like my parents get sick. I worry whenever they actually have to go to the doctor because like I don't want them to get a misdiagnosis, right? And that's something like hopefully like I could get to the stage where I could actually like fund a company that does that. But like that's one area that needs to like change, have some serious change. And also like not to devalue what's happening in the industry as well. There are like two companies I believe who are doing this already. I think MD Link and another company, I don't remember the name. But I think I'm not sure of their processes, but like I do think if they're following the correct procedures, this is something that should be in their pipeline to actually work on to make sure that you're taking the burden off these doctors and making sure that patients get proper diagnosis and proper care so that we can actually have like a healthier country. And a healthier country means a more successful, more profitable, and a more lively and fun country, right? The second area I would say is just overall business operations. It kind of sucks how little as a country we value customer feedback. Um, like customer feedback is everything, every single thing, right? If someone doesn't like the patty being too crusty, right? Sometimes people don't like, if they don't like that, like you won't really take that as like like really good feedback. And you just like continue doing what you're doing, and like you kind of like just alienate one segment of people, right? So just using that example, if you like take the feedback people are giving you and just basically using that to make a better product overall, and like just better services, you can make a product that just solves people's problems the way they're supposed to be solved, right? And I do think like not I keep on saying experimentation over and over again, because like as a company, right, like experimentation is the lifeblood of what you do. I can't stress that anymore. If you don't experiment, if you don't use user feedback to experiment, if you don't understand what's happening through your whole entire process of like when someone onboards, when someone uses the product, and even people who don't use your product anymore, like understanding why people churn, like experimentation plays a key role in every single part of that process. So our entire business operations needs to actually change from the ground up, following these frameworks, following these procedures, and just having like a more scientific approach when it comes on to experimentation as well.
Stacey, if I could just jump in and just add to one point that Dwayne made, which I think is so important. I mean, when you started out and you're saying that, not asking for permission is a Bay Area thing, to me, that strikes me as a very Jamaican thing, actually. Like one of the core, components of who we are as a people is we're kind of unruly. Like we tend to go against the established norms. But at the same time, although that's the culture of the people, there is also a very heavy culture of bureaucracy when it comes to leadership and governance and government. And so I think that sometimes it's a tension between those two that creates an environment where we're not necessarily pushing the bar when it comes to innovating in the business space. And so I do think that embracing that very same part of who we are in terms of, turn your hand, make fashion, make noise when something is going on. And, just do what you can with what you have without seeking anyone's approval, but of course getting customer feedback is one of the big things that drives innovation. It drives us to strive against whatever, holds us down. But harnessing that energy in terms of also how can we use technology, how can we innovate to create solutions that can help people not just here but on a global scale is a big part of the culture that I think is super critical for us to actually use to our advantage. So I think that for programs such as government programs, for the programs that DBJ are sponsoring, for any programs that are gatekeepers for how people get money, how people enter the market, and how people can access mentorship and just get that encouragement to continue. I think they also have to embrace that unruliness that is a part of who we are and see that as our strength, and give support to companies that are willing to take those risks, because at the end of the day, those are the ones that are going to pay off over time, whether it's in the creative industries or any sector at all.
Great points both to Dwayne and Kenya. And I also agree with both of you in the space of we do tend to wait for permission for some things. And then in other areas, we're unruly, we're just bossway, right? And so it is really how to find the balance in between those two worlds. And I think a huge part of that is the inclusion component that Dwight has been talking about, and just being able to recognize ourselves as a part of the solution and not just persons experiencing the problems, right? Similar to what Yakini was saying. And we're actually almost at the top of the hour, guys. So I really want to make sure that we touch on this one particular question that I think is really critical for everybody that tunes into this, whether you're here live or you're watching the video after, the stream after. Why should the everyday citizen care? And this is actually something that I'm happy to be putting out there, because I feel that we oftentimes, we myself included, maybe to a lesser extent now, especially with reawakening the JCS and bringing the focus of us as a digital country, front and center, representing all the different IT and digital companies. I feel that that has shifted for me. But I would say before, maybe when I just moved back here, I used to take for granted my role. I was working in corporate, and so I know what I'm doing for my job. However, we all have a role to play in that future being bright and in shining the light the way that we are doing right now through this conversation and bringing up, the things that do need to be shifted, the blocks that do need to be moved. Why should the regular person care? And I'm going to start with you, Dwight.
Regular person care in terms of who is the regular person? You're talking the public, or who exactly?
So when I say regular person, I think there is some kind of sense that innovation and tech belongs with the tech people,
Okay.
right? And that the persons who are, I think, on the experiential end of things, or the user end of things, aren't also a part of the solution. So it could be even tech providers. It could be like you talk about the banks and you're saying, they are the regulators, we are the innovators, regulators have this particular role. What are the other roles that society in general, the public, yes, have to play? And you can choose maybe specific persons or roles within the public to share your thoughts.
All right, so now I understand the question better. So go back to the point that Dwayne mentioned earlier about, just taking customer feedback, right? So all the products that we have built at Orba, and this is for the public now, is because we listen to the pain points of the public. We're not just building, products in the wild. So we listen to the pain points of the public. So for example, when we engage the public and we conduct surveys and we conduct focused conversations or groups, and we say to them, what is the experience like, in doing transaction? And they're saying, look, we have to go to the different institutions and we have to repeat the same process and we have to talk to different departments and we have to produce the same documents, right? So the public is saying, look here, we want to have a frictionless experience and we want to have a contactless experience. So somebody needs to help us to build this. And so we say, okay, can we build an MVP now? So we built an MVP, we did our focus, and then we say, okay, I think we can engage the public or the banking community with this, to give them credit, especially, just to name a few, Sagicor, Proven, these guys, GK Capital, these guys have been, JN, these guys have been working with us. But it's also because, Orba, we are a hardworking, group that, all of us come from poor beginnings, so we're hustlers. We hit the pavement. Now, you can't build any product and don't think about the public, because you don't build technology first. You problem solve first. Technology is just enablement. That's all technology is doing. So before we get into innovation and all those fancy words, let's stay simple and pragmatic. First, we need to do X, Y, Z because we have an X, Y, Z problem. How do we do it? We create a workflow to solve that problem, the logic behind it. How do we then automate? So first, we problem solve. Second, we automate. And later, we innovate. Innovation is the last thing you do. You don't start with innovation. You start with, let's problem solve. So on the public side, that's what we do, right? That's what we do on the public side. First, listen to them. Second, listen to them. Thirdly, listen to them. And then we go to work, right? Because all of the technology that we're building is not for innovation. We're building the technology to enable, to enhance, and to support humanity. This is not about the tech guys, right? And the truth about it, we can't do without the banks. We can't do without the investing public. We can't do without the marketplace. Like, we're nothing without the marketplace. So I would say, at our company, Orba, we like to say we're a customer company, right? That's what we are. We know how they sleep, how their heart beat. We know everything about them. And then when we build what is called fit-for-purpose technology, because it's not just to innovate, it's fit-for-purpose technology that is really supporting humanity. And then the marketplace incentivizes us with transaction. So that's what we get incidentally. We get the commercialization after we do the humanitarian altruistic work. And so that's how we approach it at Orba. You can tell your approach at Pre-Lab.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right, Ikini, as you answer, I would really love to hear more about the people that you are helping should care, because where you will get persons contributing to the development process, you may get others who aren't, right? And they don't recognize how it is impacting, how the shifting or the moving to, through technology is impacting them. So if you could share some of that insight as you answer as well, Yakini, I'd appreciate that.
All right, well, like Dwight was saying, the technology that we're building is not for us. It's to empower people in doing what they're doing, making it easier for them, allowing them to do more with what they already have. So to give an example, with poultry, why should the average person care about poultry? Well, poultry, if you have a house and you want to rent a room, and you don't know exactly how much this person is using, you can't afford to put in one bag of sub-metering systems, you can stay from, even if you go mobile for the weekend, you can see exactly what energy consumption is like, not just in watts, but in dollars, how much money the person is using. So you can let them know at month end that, look, we have a record of exactly how much energy you use, and you can fairly divide up the energy bill accordingly. Or even, let's say, not even renting a room. Let's just say you have a house with 10 kids, right? And if you're a parent, you know exactly what it does to your light bill. You don't know exactly where your problem area is. If you feel like, is this one always leave them TV on? If you feel like, is this one always leave the AC on? You don't know. A big part of technology is, and what role is going to play going forward is, how does it enable us to know more about what we're doing? What data does it provide us to enable us to make smarter decisions? If you know exactly where your problem areas are as it relates to energy, you know where you need to start fixing the problem, where you need to try and cut down on consumption, where you need to start, being more strict on in terms of discipline when people don't adhere to energy considerations. But all the technologies that we build, again, at pre-labs, we're about remote monitoring, control, and automation. Everything that we build enables people to understand what's happening around them more effectively. And in doing so, being able to allowing them to be able to make smarter decisions, whether it be from the platform by turning off a light or AC from your phone, or just changing out the AC from a 1990s big back to an inverter unit, which is a smart decision if you haven't already made it. So again, these are just a number of the ways, at least for pre-labs perspective. But even just in the financial sector, why should the average person care about opening a bank account? Like Dwight said, we're a transactional economy. People don't open bank accounts to save. People open bank accounts so they can do business. So why they should care, and why they should insist on the leadership to implement the changes that have to go into place. Because if you're a taximan and you want to ensure that you get the most riders possible, and that means getting into the tourism sector, getting into people that want rides from Portmore to Ochi, then you need a way to enable you to allow people to pay you without having to get in the car first. Money getting larger without you having to deal with cash. You don't have to worry about people robbing you. You need a way to connect your services to people that you wouldn't already have a means of communicating with. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be payment gateways set up for the average person to be able to collect money more easily, for the average person to be able to relate to their clients and their suppliers, their consumers in a more seamless way, to empower them to make more money for themselves.
And seriously, quickly, just to press that point a little bit more, and this is to the public now. Public, listen to us. Jamaica have a crime problem. We can decrease crime like in a very transformational way if we fix the payment and gateways. For example, as what you said, most of our crimes are driven by what? Money, right? Robbing people, killing people, right? If we eliminate cash from our society and everything goes digital, how are you going to rob people? No, I mean, you can go online and do hacking, etc. But that's a whole different problem. But I would prefer to have the hacking problem than the criminal problem. So if the public presses the leaders to say, look here, we want our entire financial sector to go digital, it solves the problem of crime. It also solves transparency. You won't have so much procurement problems, in our government leadership. You will fix a lot of these things. So we're here to say, let's bring everything online where transparency becomes normalized. And then you will see Jamaica starts to flourish. I wanted to put that in.
Yeah, it's a good point, you know. And even in the topic of crime, you know, our pre-labs have been working on a number of farms locally and on how we can help them be more resilient in terms of combating their predator larceny concerns. With different technologies like sensors and drones, essentially being able to respond to breaches and ways in which humans can't. You know, it's a lot of land, very difficult, a lot of land to cover. To cover labor expenses, a lot of money, and frankly speaking, security take bribe and allow people to come on the premises and chop up people cow. It happens a lot. It's a fact of the matter. You know, we saw the news reports. A prominent businessman lost 80% of his peppers in one night. You know, on a massive farm. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, the technology is there. You know, technology has never been the issue. The issue has always been, again, the leadership that's necessary to enable who has access to the technology to empower who needs the technology, to connect the dots in a way that is seamless and enable an economy and an industry that benefits from technology. The technology is there. Again, as do I keep stressing, and I think we need to take away from this, if nothing else, is that there has to be a better synergy between the people who are making the decisions, the red tapes that they put in, the bureaucracy that they put in to not see technology as, we can put this in. Yeah, we can afford to put this in. We can afford to spend a little extra money on putting this in, and change it to, we need to put this in if we want to change how we do things. If we want to improve, if we want to fix our problems, technology has to be a part of it.
That's excellent. And I actually really want to just kind of continue along the same vein with a little bit of a twist. And ask Kenya, you know, when we're talking about, you know, crime and the reason why, you know, crimes are committed so heavily, etc., right? We talk about having a cashless society and being more digitized. And also, we'll need to have more job opportunities, right? With a thriving economy comes job opportunities. And, you know, upskilling is just one component of that. But, you know, do you have any thoughts around the different types of strategies we could be looking at to build jobs, to stymie the challenges that we're experiencing in crime just now? And it could be something related to technology or not. Any thoughts on that? And then we'll toss over to Dwayne to just weigh in.
I think, I mean, to tie that to the question you were asking before, which is why should the average man care about technology? I don't think deep down we do, and I don't think deep down we need to. I don't think the question is, should we care about technology? I think that at the end of the day, every man want to live the life and want to live. And we really want to, can I, at the end of the day, lead the life that I feel I am able to live? And technology is a tool to get us to do that. Technology is a commodity that empowers us to do the things that we really want to do. There's so many technologically advanced countries and societies that are in turmoil right now, and technology isn't the root of that problem. When you think about how important social context is, when you think of the Black Lives Matter movement and what's happening now, it's really a matter of how we are approaching the society and how we are approaching things like, you know, identity, inclusion, and empowerment that impacts the very discussion we're having, which is, can you actually create the type of products to solve people's problems and get it to the market at a lower cost than it takes for you to actually make money? You know what I mean? So can you do what you need to do profitably? That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. And so this question of how we can empower ourselves to reduce crime, I think it really is a matter of how we look at the entire ecosystem of, let's say, innovation, for want of a better word, and how we include different pockets of, you know, society. So there's a role for everybody nowadays interacts with technology on a daily basis. My grandmother is so adept at the WhatsApp and the Twitter that she's now a member of that society. So we're all producers and we're all consumers in some way, shape, or form. But there are other support groups as well. There are the investors who are helping to finance the production that gets it to market. Then there's the distribution platforms that helps us to figure out how we can actually reach the target that we're trying to get to. And there are other stakeholders that put the policy in place for us to be enabled to do what we need to do. And so the average man has a huge role to play in this game, because you help to determine what it is that will take. You are the market. You can actually now, through technology, invest directly in the products that you believe and make your life better, that help you to live the kind of life you want to live through crowdfunding.
And is that possible for the poor as well?
Absolutely. I think that the poor, poverty, I think it depends on how you want to look at it, because there's so much that we can learn on a daily basis from people who seem to have nothing. But I think that's where innovation really begins. I think that's where you really see some of the most brilliant ideas manifested in spaces where they don't have access to some of the technology, which can become a heavier burden on you, because you have to use AI and you have to use machine learning. No, maybe all you need to do is break it down to brass tacks and figure out what would an easy answer to this solution, to this question look like. And so I feel that it's actually in approaching, it's not in Jamaicans mimicking what happens in other countries and trying to necessarily always import those solutions here, but in using the very nature of who we are and how we are and the way that we always maneuver and hustle and get things done, that can enable us to build that ecosystem of investors who understand the market and its potential and who are willing to take risks, to empower producers who are innovating to solve problems at a higher margin that they can do so sustainably, to supply consumers who want the content, who want these products, who want these services, and that's basic, and who are supported by government, who sets the strategic framework, the policy framework, so that each player can operate in a space that is beneficial to them. That ecosystem is what will enable us to move forward, to shine. That's the vision I see for the future in terms of shining a light on the future. And I think that it's in doing so, we all have a role to play. And at the end of the day, we can live a life that we want to live. And for me personally, a big part of that is how we can use what we're very good at. One of those things is our creativity. And if we can just combine that with some of these very bright minds on this panel, persons who are listening, and if we can harness that power of technology with collaboration, and find ways to work together, to complement our strengths, to connect to people who are close to the market, who know what people want, people who rate what we can do already, who are asking, who are begging for more stuff from us. I feel like that's how we're going to reap the real benefits of the value of what we can create using technology.
Okay, excellent. Wow. So we're actually out of time, guys. I have several more questions, but this has really been a very riveting discussion. I think we pretty much touched on almost every single sector, every industry. Dwayne, I see you took off your mic. You have a final thought before we close?
I do. Dwight mentioned customer centricity, right? A key component of customer centricity is empathy, right? Understanding the processes people have to go through to complete something, right? And you said, you asked if, like, how do you make people care? I love Kenya's point. People won't care unless you understand their problems or their what they have to actually go through, right? They won't care until, like, you really understand their pain points. And pretty much, like, it's something that we need to, like, replicate within our companies as founders. Is something that we need to have in our lives as people to be better people overall. And as a company, we need to basically have a center or operations on empathy and understanding the user, understanding, like, their pain points, and just trying the best way to solve those pain points. And pretty much, I could say a little bit more on that, but, like, we're out of time. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that final point, Dwayne. And I think that really just underscores everything that's been discussed today. You know, we have a lot of opportunity in the space of technology. We have a lot of great entrepreneurs out there, both here and in the mecca of technology, with Dwayne being in the Bay Area. We have a lot of talent and great products being developed by our tech sector, by our innovators. And what we need great leadership, empathy from those leaders, and inclusion. We need access, we need inclusion. And if nothing else, somebody can definitely go through this video and get a list of things that are low-hanging fruit that we can immediately address, that will help to not only impact our future, but impact the now. You know, I really like the point that Dwight made, that in order for us to even get to the point of innovation, we really have to start with identity inclusion, financial inclusion, access, empathy. You know, I think everybody brought forward just great points. So I want to thank my panelists for coming on and for talking about the great work that each of their companies are doing. Thank you so much, Kenya, and thank you, Dwight, thank you, Dwayne, and thank you, Yakini, for joining us as we talked about shining a light on the future with our Jamaican innovators and tech entrepreneurs. So this is Stacey Hines, president of the JCS, Jamaica's Technology and Digital Alliance. Please come looking for us. We're excited to onboard you on our journey. Thanks for joining us, and thanks DBJ for having this conversation as a part of your series. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having us.